Welcome everyone to the Med Spa Accelerator Podcast, brought to you by Everable Marketing, the go-to resource so you can get the latest hacks and best practices to market and grow a profitable medical aesthetics practice. My name is Maripili and I am obsessed with all things business, marketing, operations, numbers, and helping you grow and take your med spa to the next level. This is the Med Spa Accelerator Podcast, Season 2.
Okay. Hey, how you been doing?
Hey, how's it going? It's been doing pretty good. Just first time getting sick with COVID. It definitely sucked.
Was it better or worse than you thought?
I think it was better than I thought. I don't think I got the strain that was the most intense one, right? Since I feel like it's been a little diluted, but man, it's still, I think it's what's crazy is just that, like, how you physically, you feel sick, obviously, but then you can start feeling better. But then you still have like all these emotional and mental issues that happen. Yes. And it's weird because of, like, physically I don't feel sick, but I also just don't feel like 100% myself. So that was, that's COVID. It's a tricky one.
Yeah, definitely. It's not like your typical flu or whatnot. I can't believe that people actually do go completely asymptomatic.
Yeah, that's insane.
That is crazy. But yeah, after trying to evade it for 2 years, we finally gave in. We're like, okay, let's see what this fuss is about.
Yeah, we were fortunate enough to not get hit on the first or second or third wave. I don't know. I feel like there's been another wave recently, and I guess that one got us. So we were very fortunate, but thankfully.
No, yes, it definitely hit hard. But okay, and actually talking about, things hitting you hard, today's topic is all about the upcoming recession and how to best crisis-proof your business. I think that this is such a good topic for us to talk about right now. I know you and I have been just getting all the information that we can. We've been talking about this for a while now, what to do, what might happen, what is happening right now. And I think it's a great topic to bring to the podcast because we do have a lot of people that want to know what are starting their business right now. Yeah. That's what we're talking with a lot of new clients that are just starting out. They want to know, is this a great time to do that? What should I do? Should I just wait? And so it's
well, I mean, not just if you're starting a business, but also if you obviously all the people we work with, and even ourselves, what can we do, or how can we best prepare ourselves so that we can kind of weather the storm and then be positioned for once things start to recover again,
Yeah, definitely. And I think, for this episode particularly, and what's helped me the most as I've been we've been going through this and kind of getting all of her information, is that when you're reading about these things, the first instinct is just oh crap, what is happening? Yeah. And so for me, what has helped me the most is just getting all of this information about the mindset as an entrepreneur. So I definitely want to talk about that first. What do you do to help you in that entrepreneurial mindset and not just freak out about everything that might happen?
Yeah, for sure. And so I think this is something that I think we all kind of go through, right? At the end, at the end of the day, it's normal to feel a little scared, right?
Yeah.
I think there's just, obviously there's a lot of things going on, and we all knew this was coming. I think everybody's been talking about it since 2019, right? And we thought that 2020 was going to be, obviously there's a lot of stuff that happened in 2020, and we did have an economic downturn, but we were, regardless of what your opinions are in regards to the government, the economy, etc. There was still growth, and it was kind of there was a very quick bounce back, whether it was superficial or not because of all the money that was printed, etc. Yeah. But at the end of the day, there was still movement in the economy, and things definitely got a lot better. Now what's happening, it seems like, obviously because of the money that was printed, we got some, we're going to be dealing with inflation. We're dealing with gas prices. We're dealing with shortages, right?
All the stimulus checks. I remember getting those and be like, oh, how is this going to affect us in a few years?
I know, like, it's cool, right? Like, oh yeah, I got money in the mail all of a sudden. But it's like, okay, well, what does that mean for us in the future, right? And we're like, okay, well, we'll let future Luis and Billy deal with it.
In the future world.
Yeah.
Deal with that.
And so I think obviously, like, there's this time of uncertainty, and it's normal for you. And I think because we've done this too, it's like to just take a step back, and actually it's just going to be a good time for us to like reset. I think when it comes to mindset, like, it's normal to maybe just feel a little bit insecure, but also trying to be as objective and pragmatic as possible is going to be a key step here. So I feel like taking things back and actually being able to say, it's because what I want to say is that, like, okay, like, you need to not panic. And in order for you to not panic, like, you need to get back to like your roots. So I feel like, going back to just put your body, being positioned so that you can kind of deal with this, or you can be your best self. So by like dieting, exercise, like making sure that those things are in place, because part of you to be an entrepreneur is that you have to make these tough decisions, and you have to be, you need to have the mental clarity. You need to be, your emotions need to be in the right place. And in order for all those things to happen, and to ensure that you are making wise decisions as you're navigating these times of uncertainty, like, you have to be your best self. Right. And so I think, I feel like a lot of times we neglect that as entrepreneurs. Like, we don't really take into account our health. And I think for us, that's been such a big thing, topic these past few days, just because we, since we got sick and stuff. And I think we both realized that, hey man, when I'm not, when I'm sick and when I'm not eating correctly or sleeping correctly, and, all these other things, like, I don't feel super good. And guess what? If you don't feel good, you're not going to make good decisions. Like,
Yes. I definitely like what you're saying about, like going back to basics, right? And just taking care of yourself as a person. I think it's huge. And I love, like Alex Schafran's stuff of like diminishing your stress everywhere else, so you can really make sure that you're all about your potential. So definitely, I think one of the first things is like taking care of yourself, because if you're good, you're gonna make the best decisions for your business, right? And so
and all that goes into mindset. Like, you can't have a good mindset if you're only sleeping 6 hours a day. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you just haven't rested. And like, sleep is, I guess one of these, is super important, like this biohack, right? Like, if you're not sleeping well, like, automatically, like, you're not making good decisions already, because you're just so mentally and physically fatigued that you just don't have the capacity, right? And so I think part of mindset is just being able to take, your health back to basics, and, like, what are you doing for exercise, right? Like, what are you doing to just kind of de-stress? What are you doing, just to sleep better? Like, what are you putting into your body? Like, what are all those things? Because at the end of the day, you need to be your optimal self if you're going to like, deal with the things that are coming ahead, And
I just had this conversation with one of our clients, and she was saying like, well, like, it's also hard because how do you do that? Like, how could you even sleep well when like you're stressed about your business and all these things, right? And so I think what we came up with, like, after that conversation, was that because there's so much uncertainty that is coming, and there are so many things that you cannot control, this you can. I mean, obviously you're going to be stressed about it. Obviously it is going to affect your sleep. But if you try to control the things that you can control, kind of like what you're putting in your body, having like a good night routine, putting like certain boundaries when it comes to your work, then in order, like, that will just kind of help, at least, if anything. You might still be stressed, you might still have some sleepless nights, but you're trying to help as much as you can so that you are the best that you can be, right?
Yeah, I mean, and it might not be like, 100% perfect from one day to the next, right? But it's something that you put into place, and those are things that just build up on top of each other. Like, and I know because, it's some, I think we both kind of gone through it where we've kind of gone through periods of our lives where, hey, I'm not sleeping well, or I'm not eating well, like, and then we notice how it affects us in every aspect of what we do, right?
Yes.
So super important. So, you got to get your mindset right. That's number one, right? And then once you are in a better place emotionally and mentally, physically, right, to start making, some decisions in your business, then that's kind of like you do that after, right?
Yes. Yes.
Sorry,
for me, the other thing that like really helps, definitely like the physical stuff, but for mindset is knowing that everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Knowing, like, for me has been like huge that we're still pretty young, so we haven't gone through a lot of recessions. I mean, I think the other one we went through, we're still like in college, and before that we were kids. So it didn't really affect us as entrepreneurs 100%, right? But we went through 2020, right? We went through this like intense worldwide pandemic and all the economic rollout that came out of that, right? So at least knowing that like through that year, we became better entrepreneurs. We understood business 10 times better. We helped our clients maintain and actually even thrive in their businesses. That really helps me and my mindset know, and even gets me a little bit excited that like it is in times of crisis that like our best ideas flow.
Definitely. I think, so out of necessity grows creativity, right? Or I don't know if I totally butchered that saying, but it's something along those lines, right? And like, and so I think part of the mindset that you need to have towards this, especially if you want to come at it, from a positive standpoint, which we don't have any other choice. Like, you have to look at it from this standpoint of view, is that historically during any recession, it was a huge time of innovation. It was a huge time of just growth, right? Like, I think, if you study it, like there's a ton of, and this is what everybody's kind of like saying right now. It's like there are more millionaires, billionaires made during a recession than like when times are just like really, really good. And so a lot of it is because like, all the market, all economics is like solving a problem, right? And so there's going to be problems. People are going to need solutions. And so it's like, how can you innovate? How can you do something that will provide a solution to those problems, right? Yeah. And then if we can do that, then we can, come out ahead, and so I think it's kind of like game time, like hey, like it's game time, and like it's time to prove to ourselves and prove to the market that like, hey, we belong here. And like my
business belongs here.
Yeah, like, and so, and the reality is like, hey, like if you don't provide a good service, like if you don't provide the service that you say that you provide, if you don't have the right systems in place to actually provide that quality of service that people want, like, then, hey, let's be honest, like, you shouldn't be running a business to begin with, and so I think that there is going to be kind of like a reset when it comes to just businesses, because the people that work hard, the people that, have a good product, have a good service, like those are the ones that are going to be around, and they're going to do even better as we keep going through this time. And so it's exciting, I feel like,
it's scary exciting.
It's scary exciting. I don't know. I mean, this is me personally, but sometimes if like things are just going too good, it's just kind of like gets a little boring. You know what I mean? Like you need a challenge. You know what I mean? Like life is all about challenges. You can't just have it good all the time. You know what I mean? Like otherwise it's just boring, Yeah.
And I think that's partly too why we become entrepreneurs. Like a 9-to-5 job gets kind of boring. Like you just go in, you work, you get out, like that's it. But these are like intense problems that like we need to come up with very creative solutions. And I think you and I come from a very like creative background. And so it is scary exciting. Now, the other thing that I think is super important and why you should really focus on your mindset is because not only do you have this business that needs to thrive, but if you have an established business that has staff already in it, you have to be that leader that people like follow, right? Because they are seeing already the price changes, the gas prices going up. Like they are going to be scared for the future of their jobs.
Yeah.
So like following somebody that is like steady, or as steady as we can be, it really helps, because they are, and we've talked about this again and again in the podcast, your staff is fundamental in your business. They are the ones that are talking to your clients. They are the ones that make sure that whether that client comes back and is a raving fan, or they are turned off and give a terrible review, right?
Exactly.
So making sure that your staff is like as steady as possible too, I think is going to help the future of any business moving forward.
Yeah. And I feel like at the end of the day, like that's what your staff wants, right? Like your staff wants for you to have a vision and to have this level of certainty that like, hey, like it's crazy out there, but you know what? We're going to figure it out together, you know? And like, I believe in you. If you believe in me, right? Like I can help us weather this storm, right? Or like we can figure it out together. And I think like, what else do you want out of a leader? You know what I mean? Like somebody that like, you know, hey, this person has my back, right? Yeah. And like, we're going to really try our best to make this happen. And it's a team, you know what I mean? Like, and so, you know, I think definitely it's going to mean like investing time into your staff, like not neglecting them, like communicating. I think communicating with them often and making sure that like people don't deviate from the vision, you know what I mean? Or like, cause I think it's something that where like, maybe if you used to do like a roundup just once a week, maybe you're going to need to start doing a roundup every single day, you know, just to ensure that morale stays high, because like, you already know, like you're as weak as like your weakest link, right? Or you're as strong as your weakest link. And so at the end of the day, it's like, you need to ensure that your staff is continuing to, you know, perform at the level that you need them to perform, and that's on the leader, right? And that's on the business owner. So that's going to be super important. Yeah,
because just as you're working on your mindset, you need to make sure that your staff's mindset is also on point, right?
Yeah.
Like on the game.
And that's something you need to show them, you know, like you can't just tell them. You need to do it yourself. You need to show them how to do it, and then they'll follow suit. So yeah.
And I think it's so huge because, you know, we know the importance of, for example, like sales, right? And especially during this time, and specifically for the type of businesses that we serve, they are a lot of the times a luxury, right? And so those are the first things that people end up like cutting out in times of crisis. And so if your staff is like good mentally and they feel secure, then in turn they're going to be able to keep selling at the rate, or at least keep it as steady as possible. But if they are already like freaking out and they're like almost ready to like get a new job, go like trying, like they probably just had a bad week, they couldn't afford groceries, whatever that might be, their mindset's not there. So they're not going to be able to sell at the same capacity or like the way they used to, because they're all gonna start selling with their wallet. And so that becomes an issue.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be 100%. So those are things that you kind of need to manage, right? And ensure that if you spot them early and you get them addressed and you move on, right? Like, you know, those things just can't go unnoticed. And part of that just means that, you know, it's game time. Like you're going to need to be on top of it even more so now than, you know, we were before. Right. And so that's going to be super big. What are some of the things in your opinion that like somebody can do to best prepare, right? Like, you know, so we talked about mindset, we talked about, you know, ensuring that your staff, you know, is on point. What are some of the things that else, like maybe, you know, I feel like one to sustain, but then potentially also still have some growth.
Yeah. I mean, I think like one of the first things, and we were just talking about that like yesterday, I think, is to make sure that you know what your cash flow looks like, and your overhead. And so one of the first things that I think you can have control over is like making sure that you see exactly what you're spending on, and to know, okay, minimum, this is what I need to make every single month. Like knowing your numbers to a T, I think is huge, because you're not making decisions out of feeling, but out of data. And so knowing like, okay, I need these many sales minimum. Because the other thing about like a time in crisis is that yes, there's like a lot of opportunity to be creative and try something new and like even bring growth, but you also need to have a safe fail, right? So knowing that like, okay, in the worst case scenarios, this is my minimum. This is what I need, at least for my business to survive, to ensure that my staff is okay, to ensure that I'm still delivering.
So yeah, I mean, I definitely like agree. You know, I would definitely second everything you just said. You know, going back to fear, right? Like the way that you combat fear is always with clarity, right? You know, because I feel like a lot of times when we're afraid of something, it's like we're afraid of the unknown. You know, we don't really know what's going to happen. It's this whole thing of uncertainty. Well, the way you combat that is with certainty, with clarity, right? And so having clarity is going to help you, I think, one, just give you a peace of mind, because you know, like one thing is just like, okay, yeah, maybe like I know I have a problem, but not knowing what that problem is like, it always feels 10 times worse. Like, I don't know what it is about just naming the dragon, right? I'm doing that in quotations, like that just kind of gives you like, okay, once I know what the problem is, then now I know I can, like, what actions I can take towards solving that. It's just not knowing that, like, where like all of a sudden the fear comes in, the stress, the overwhelm, right? But I feel like once you're able to identify whatever that problem might be, in this case, like you need to have clarity on like the profit and loss, like, you know, and like your expenses, your overhead. You need to have clarity on all of the, like the numbers for your business, all the financials, right? Yeah. So I think that's definitely going to be step number one. It's like looking at, okay, like how much money do I need to make to pay salary, to pay, you know, our expenses, right? Yeah. You know, whatever that number might mean for you. And then I feel like right now, you know, based on some of the conversations we've had with people from all over the States, it's like some people I think are still doing pretty well, and other ones maybe are feeling it a little bit more. And so I would definitely say, like, if you're not feeling it right now, and you're actually like, it's been really good the past few months for you, then my advice, I mean, honestly, and I would say this to try to with everybody, is like, you definitely want to obviously know, you know, how much money you need to have, right? And then look at, okay, like if I'm still doing well, how can I do as well as possible in the next few months so that I can reserve as much cash as I can, right? And so like to stock up on as much cash as possible. And honestly, every time there's been a famine, like if you look at his, you know, even if you go to biblical times, right? Like this is all what was always done. You know what I mean? Like, hey, there's going to be a famine. Okay, well, we need to like start storing up some food. You know what I mean? And so at the end of the day, it's like, you need to know what your overhead looks like, because if you can start saving enough cash so that you can have a runway for the next, you know, let's just say 12 to 3 years, potentially, I don't know, you know, but definitely just having as much funds available so you can try to weather the storm as much as you can. But then on top of that, I feel like because of some of the reset that there will be, like, you know, the what everybody's kind of saying right now is that you can buy the world at fraction of the cost. You know what I mean? Because now it's just like, you know, things are just a lot more affordable, right?
Yeah, no, I think that is huge. Like understanding, that's why I go back to like data, because it is definitely going to affect different parts of the US differently, or even the world differently. So you need to know and understand your specific numbers. And then more than that, I think too, is like, this is a great time to understand also your audience. Like how is it going to affect them? Because if you understand them to the T, then you can actually talk to them in a way that makes sense to them. Yeah. Yes, there's going to be less people now that might have the cash flow to invest in some of these things, you know, like some luxury items. But at the same time, there are still people that do that.
For sure.
Even through COVID, we noticed that like there were protests out there for people wanting their haircuts, you know, like masks became mandatory and people were selling them, and businesses came out of that. And now they're artistic and you can match color them with your bathing suit. Like all these things kind of come out of this. So it's not like people will stop searching for beauty, even in time of like a recession, sometimes even more so, because they want to feel good about themselves. They might not be doing so great, and so this will help them and elevate their confidence. So you need to understand your particular audience and what is it that they are going through so that you can fit that need.
100%. Like I think, like the business that invests the most amount of time having a better understanding of the needs of their, you know, client base or patient base, like I think those are the ones that are going to end up top, because, you know, like we talked about that in order for us to succeed during this time, it's just really being able to solve these problems. And again, if you don't know what the problem is, then you can't solve anything, right? So it's like, you know, the only way that you'll know what those problems are if you actually have like good conversations and you understand like what are the challenges and struggles that your current patients or clients are going through, right? And then on top of that, like, okay, well, how can I, once I know what those problems are, how can I serve them to the best of my ability? How can I actually solve those problems, and then kind of be innovative in how you are solving those problems? And that's where people grab on to $1 million ideas, right? Because they start doing something that was a little bit different, but solves that problem that they originally needed, you know? And so we ended up, you know, that ended up being like a really great way to grow. And I guess just kind of as an example, you know, and this is something that we lived through, and this was back in 2020 when we started our other agency, when we started Engage, like, you know, I think Engage did really well very early on, simply because we came in with an offer during a time where that offer resonated really well with the audience. Like not only was the offer really good, but it was also just really good timing. And, you know, we were in a situation where, you know, there was a time of uncertainty. We didn't know what was going to happen. Businesses were feeling very insecure. We ended up saying like, hey, we'll take up more of the risk. You know, you're used to paying for these retainers on a reoccurring basis, right? Like, what if we actually only take on some of the risk, and you only pay us when people actually show up, right? And so that was a really great offer that just resonated really well. And because of that, we grew. Like, we came in with a very unique solution to a problem. We innovated, right? And that, you know, because of that, right, we had tremendous growth. And so like the offer was just fueled by the time, you know, and the need that people had. And like, that's what I'm saying. Like, when you can be innovative and you can find something that people really need in the marketplace, that can really just help you explode. And it's one of those life altering events, because, you know, like I was saying earlier, like there's a lot of millionaires that were made, or billionaires that were born out of economic recession. You know what I mean? And now it's like they've been able to launch themselves and make something of themselves. And that obviously creates opportunity for everyone else. But, you know, it's definitely a good time. So it's like, don't be discouraged. So
yeah, definitely. I think knowing your audience is ideal, because it is in these times when you can be very creative. For us, for example, we knew that, you know, we needed to come up with something. Med spas had to close their doors. Everybody thought it was going to be for 2 weeks, but it didn't, right? And so we needed to come up with this solution that was a virtual med spa. And it worked for us because we had been doing a remote and virtual business for the longest time. We have been doing our meetings via Zoom. We knew how to like sell via Zoom. We knew all of these like operational things within our business. And so it was easy for us to, well, not easy, but it just made sense for us to go from that and deliver it to our med spas. And so that is how we helped all of our clients still make money through the times where their doors were closed.
Their doors were closed. They were still making money.
But we still got people coming in through the door because they wanted to learn how to do virtual consultations, virtual events, how to manage those, what to do. They were so overwhelmed with the technology, the operations, everything else. And so we were able to really talk to a specific audience that needed that. So I think the same can be done for your business. You just really need to learn your audience. What are they looking for, and deliver that. 100%.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's just such a great example of, you know, how we were able to accommodate during those times. Right. And like, that was the need back then. This time the need might be different, and so the solution might be different. But it's like, again, like the way that you're going to be able to come up with those solutions is just by investing the time in talking to your audience, getting to know, what do they really want? Like, what do they still really want, even though, they might be struggling right now, and that's what you double down on, you know what I mean? Anyway.
And I think now next to that is, of course, we need to talk about advertising and marketing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Not only because that's what we do, but we have seen the impact that it makes. So now you have this amazing service. You're talking to your ideal client. Well, you need to talk to them directly, right? Like, how else are they going to know that you have this amazing solution for them? How else are you going to talk directly to them if you are not putting yourself out there?
For sure. Yeah. And so I think, I feel like the knee-jerk reaction for a lot of people is just like, oh, I'm going to stop spending on advertising and marketing, where my approach is that you definitely need to, like we talked about earlier, know what your expenses are, and then know what you can still allocate towards marketing and advertising. There's a very super famous Henry Ford quote that talks, God, I'm totally butchering it. I don't really recall what it was. I recall the sentiment is don't stop advertising. All right. So famous quote from Henry Ford, right? It says, a man who stops advertising to save money, is like a man who stops a clock to save time, right? It's just one of those things that we can't just kind of turn off our water hose, right? If we need new patients, we need new revenue coming in, we need to be smart with our money, right? So being able to understand that where your money is going, and then optimizing that spend, right? So, we talked about that you needed to know what your overhead was, what was your salary, what are your monthly expenses when it comes to machines, to, insurance, right? Just office expenses, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And then budgeting also, okay, well, right now, let's just say I'm spending 10 grand a month on advertising, and I'm advertising across 4 different, avenues. Okay, well, let's start making smart decisions, and let's start allocating these funds and actually see where are we getting the best return out of. So it's going to just go back down to you being smart with your money, right? And so it's hey, if you're advertising in one platform that's giving you a 5 times return and the other platform is only giving you a 3 times return, well then, it might mean that we take off some money from this platform and allocate more of this money over here. And so I think for people that are spending on, a lot of traditional things like magazines, billboards, that's not the best use of your money because it's not optimized, right? It's really hard to track. You don't really know who it's, who's actually, if your ideal audience is actually seeing it or any of the sort. And so where it's hey, if you invest some of those funds digitally, those dollars are just going to go a long way, And so same thing.
You're actually tracking them. You actually know what's happening.
100%. And then on top of that too, it's the other question is, okay, well, how can I be creative with my acquisition? How can I be creative with my promotion? Hey, it might just mean that maybe instead of putting money, in a magazine, maybe I reach out to a local influencer and maybe pay them, and they have an audience that is my audience as well. Maybe I give them some of those funds and I get them to, do some kind of influencer campaign, right? Or maybe I need to double down on my patient database, right? I need to maybe be investing a little bit more into communicating more frequently with my database, because that's low hanging fruit. It's always cheaper to get an existing customer, client, patient to come and buy again versus you acquiring a new one. That's just the law, right? Yeah. And so it's what are you doing to increase the lifetime customer value of your database, right?
Right.
And so those are all things that need to come into question and need to be revisit, visit it, and then you need to come up with the plan on, what are you going to do? Right?
Yeah, it's not just advertising and marketing for the sake of it and because, oh my God, Henry Ford said it, but it's actually because you need to have a strategy in place, right? If you don't have a good strategy to advertise, then you are throwing your money out.
For sure.
And if you don't have the operations to follow through, then you're also in a place where you're just spending money for spending money. And that's what we tell our clients too, like, and even like people that are barely starting with us, or there are potential clients, hey, where are you in these systems? Because if you are not, you don't have these things in place, then it might not make sense right now for you. So, make sure to put your head down, get your process in place, and then advertise, because then and only then you're advertising strategically. Right. And so I think that is huge, right? And it's all about like putting the time in to work on your business during these times.
Another one that I didn't fully mention, but it's just what are you going to do more on social media? Like what are you going to do? Nice thing about social media is that it's it's just your time, right? And then it's free, so it's like, if you really want it to work, what are you going to be doing? And I think for right now, investing a lot on your brand is just going to be really important.
And that's actually our next episode, which is really cool. So make sure to check that out.
Yes, definitely. And so we're going to be talking about, kind of how you can leverage your brand to kind of help you through these times. Right. And so, but that's just another big thing, you leveraging that brand on social media, and again, communicating with your audience as much as you can through those social platforms, because honestly, it's so ridiculous. With TikTok and Instagram, specifically, you can put out some really simple content and start creating a buzz in your local community. You can position yourself as a local celebrity, as an expert, so on and so forth. And that's how you eat up a lot of the market, a lot of the times, right?
Yeah.
But it's and how
your advertising costs come down too.
Yeah, it helps your advertising costs come down as well. So all those things are super important and will definitely play an impact. And will definitely play a role in these times ahead.
Definitely. So I love this episode. I think we talked a lot about actual tangible things that you can do for these time of need. And so, recession, unfortunately, it's coming.
It's part of life, right?
And
it's part of the economy. It's something that needs to happen every so often. And so it's exciting times.
Yeah. And know that it'll pass.
Yeah.
Too. These times shall pass too. And it is a great way to just get better at your craft, to be again in that zone of genius and go back to the basics of taking care of yourself, but also the basics of why did you get into this business in the first place?
Yeah.
Why are you in business, and how can you get creative during these times? So if anything, I believe in you. I think you can do it. I think it is.
I believe in you too.
We believe in you. We think that you can do this. I think if anybody is actually listening to this episode and taking it to heart, they can do it, because
I think the fact that it's kind of like what they say about, hey man, 80% is just showing up. You know what I mean? And so you're here, you're investing time, your energy, and effort, and we have no doubt that you're going to come out ahead.
Yes, definitely. So if you like this episode, if you want to see more of it, make sure to follow us in all of the social media platforms and wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, we have a Facebook group that's specifically just for you. So make sure to check that out. Follow us, subscribe. And if you have any questions or comments, just slide into our DMs.
Thank you. I'll see you all next time.
Bye. Bye-bye.